and you have these various treatment options, what price tag do you put on maintaining sexual function and bladder control? And by the way, just to finish up on that, I mentioned to you earlier that 10 years ago when I was treated, there was only one treatment center in the world, and that was Loma Linda University Medical Center in Southern California. They really pioneered this treatment by working with the Fermi Lab in Chicago to build a mini synchrotron, or particle accelerator, that they could put in the basement of the hospital. And then they built all of the other facilities around it. But today, there are 7 treatment centers, proton treatment centers in the United States, Florida, Massachusetts, in addition to California, Florida, Massachusetts, Texas, Indiana, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, University of Pennsylvania just opened one, and Hampton University will soon open one, and there are several others under construction. So despite the cost, and by the way, some opposition by practitioners of competing modalities, these centers are springing up all over the world.
I think that's fantastic news.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a couple more questions here for you before we go to our next commercial break. First question, how are you doing today?
I couldn't be doing better, Frank. The quality of my life is at least as good as it was before treatment, and probably better. One of the things that I learned at Loma Linda, they have an extraordinary make man whole mission there, where they treat you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And while my wife and I were out there, we learned a lot about diet and nutrition and lifestyle. And I became much more active. I paid much more attention to my diet and lifestyle. So I'm exercising a lot more regularly. My diet is much improved. And, of course, my cancer, there's no trace of cancer in my body. My PSA has been holding at a very, very low level ever since treatment. And I couldn't be happier about it. I never experienced any of the side effects that I feared that I knew could have happened and were likely to happen if I had chosen some of the alternatives.
Now, you started an organization called the Brotherhood of the Balloon.
Yes.
Now, can you tell me about the Brotherhood of the Balloon? Where it got its name, how you got started, why did you set it up?
Well, it's funny because when it started, it was originally going to be an organization, if you will, and I use the term loosely, representing 6 men who went through treatment together. We were all scientists and engineers, and we decided that we wanted to stay in touch with each other, partly because we became friends, partly because we also had done a lot of research studying the disease, and we knew that we'd be tracking our PSAs over time, and we wanted to compare notes. And back then, it was almost like the Robin Williams movie, the Dead Poets Society. No one was really going to know that this group that had the funny name Brotherhood of the Balloon was going to be in existence. The balloon, the reason for the title, Brotherhood of the Balloon, is that for your treatment each day, they used to use a small rectal balloon. They would insert into the rectum and inflate with 4 ounces of water to protect the rectum from radiation damage, and also to push the prostate up against the pelvic bone to immobilize it so it was in the same position every day. So the one thing that we all had in common is we received this balloon during our treatment every single day for 5 days a week for about 8.5 weeks. What I didn't realize was that others had heard about us and asked to participate in this thing. And by the time I left the hospital in December of 2009, we had 19 members. And after that, we established a website, started putting out a monthly newsletter, and more joined, and now we have close to 5,000 members.
Beautiful. Let's talk about your book very quickly before we go to commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you write it? Was this a journal that you converted into a book? Did you decide from the beginning of this process to write the book? What was the motivation? What has been some of your feedback? Where can we get it?
I wrote the book that I wish had been available to me when I was diagnosed 10 years ago. As I mentioned earlier, I was confused, I was losing sleep, I was angry, and the information that I wanted just wasn't available. Books that were written, there are lots of books. If you go to Amazon right now, there are 3,400 books available on prostate cancer. And my book, by the way, ranges between the number 2 and number 4 spot on Amazon. So it's being discovered by lots and lots of people. But I wrote the book that I wish had been available when I was diagnosed. A book that would describe exactly what this disease is from a layman's point of view. A book that would guide people through the diagnosis process. If I knew then what I know now, I would have been diagnosed 3 years before I was diagnosed, number one. Number two, I would not have gone through 3 different sets of biopsies that would have discovered it in the first biopsy. Number three, I would not have undergone any pain or discomfort during the biopsy, because there are things you can do to mitigate that pain, such as having local anesthesia. But most doctors won't tell you about that because it slows down the process. I also wanted to tell folks in my book about what these alternative treatment options were all about, the real story based on my interviews with patients. What is it like to have surgery? What is it like to have external beam radiation? What is it like to have seeds? What are the side effects? So on and so forth. And I did that. It was not a journal. It was basically sifting through all the research that I did during the first 6 years and putting it into a format that was easily understandable, user-friendly, and so on. And based on the feedback that I've gotten, and I receive dozens and dozens of emails every single week from folks who have told me that my book has changed their lives, and nothing makes me happier than that.
You're listening to Frank Talks Pleasures and Lifestyles. We'll be back right after this.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by the program Dating Younger Women, a guide for older men to the emotional needs of loving younger women. Frank brings good news to the older seducer, to women they possess higher value. Frank's lecture reviews the stigmas associated with older men dating younger women and their solutions. Key emotional needs for both women and men in the age difference, methods of approaching younger women, and several answers to questions posed by older members of the audience. He also very much covered marriage between an older man and a younger woman. When dealing with a little girl inside, a man must be able to distinguish those women who wish to compensate losses in a father figure from those who are seeking and capable of an authentic relationship. Frank adds advice on where you can meet younger women, as well as dealing with the competition. Life gets better. All in all, a confidence-refreshing lecture for men concerned about their erotic viability over the hill. Dating Younger Women, a guide for older men to the emotional needs of loving younger women. Buy this program now at franktalks.com.
From Loser to Seducer is the story of Frank B. Kermit. This book marks the triumph of a nice guy over most of his inner demons. This includes going from being a loser to managing 5 lovers at the same time, his first Valentine's date with 2 women at the same time, and getting back the one that got away. Want to learn how you can change your life? Buy this book at franktalks.com.
Honest, frank approaches, trusted professional conduct, timely taboo topics, and the most eclectic ensemble of interview guests ever produced. Listen to Frank Talks to learn about the different sides of the human spirit. Be sure to visit our website at www.franktalks.com for the most up-to-date information and the latest downloads of programs just like the one you're listening to now.
You're listening to Frank Talks Pleasures and Lifestyles. I'm Frank, because I have to be. In studio today, we are talking with author Robert Marckini. He wrote the book, You Can Beat Prostate Cancer, and he has given us a tremendous wealth of knowledge in this episode of Frank Talk.